Well, good afternoon and welcome to the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. Do not adjust your sets. I am sitting in the hot seat for Joy Foster here at Tech Pixies, and it is such a privilege to be able to host the Sparkle and Thrive podcast for Joy, as she's not available today. But do not worry, you don't have to listen to me for the next while. You have a wonderful guest, and it is wonderful to have Kirsty Vandenbulk with us today on the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. Welcome, Kirsty. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
It's lovely to have you with us. Now, you've been on the podcast before, isn't that right?
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. No, not done an episode yet. Run my own and helped out on some of the things in the group, but not been on the Sparkle and Thrive yet.
Wow. Oh, well, welcome. It's lovely to have you with us. Now, Kirsty, before we launch into our subject, what I'm going to talk about nevers and never saying never. Before we launch into that, would you tell us a little bit about yourself, your kind of work background and the path that's led you to where you are today?
So I have a huge wiggly, wonky career, and I'm really proud of it. So I started at the age of 8 as a actor, and I do mean 8. My first professional acting job, I was 8 years old, and I did a Heinz baked beans advert.
Oh,
I know, and you can still find it now. And that catapulted me to go to drama school, and I continued on as a performer. So I was in musical theatre. I ended up being a TV actor, and I had a great time. And then I pivoted my life in my mid-30s, massive life change. Went back to university, found out I was dyslexic and dyspraxic, which was kind of interesting. There is a bit that I missed out that I was born with a speech impediment. But anyway, it's moving back to the the university at 37. Massive blow to the confidence, finding out I was dyslexic and dyspraxic. But I pivoted again because at that point, in your mid-30s, if you haven't really made it and you're not Nicole Kidman, getting acting work is really difficult. And so I pivoted and I ended up in business. I worked for some really big companies like Samsung, Intel, D-Link, and had an absolute blast. And then our daughter came along. So this is like late 40s. My daughter came along and I pivoted again and launched my own business and really launched it in 2021 after I'd overcome a lot of imposter syndrome and a lot of fear.
Wow, my goodness, that's amazing. And we are going to talk about fear a little bit later on, because I think it's one of the things that can stop us from doing the thing that we really want to do. But I wanted to quote you from your website, a quote that really struck me. And you say, communication is powerful when it is done with service at the heart. And I just thought that was a wonderful quote, because at Tech Pixies, communication is a big subject here, but also the motives and the heart that drives all we do is so important. And I can see that that's a huge part of your business. Is that something that you learned through this, as you called it, wibbly wobbly journey to what you're doing now, that combination of communication and service, that they work together?
Absolutely. I'm really, really lucky that I started, apart from acting at the age of 8, I started my first Saturday job at 13, and I started in the stockroom in a model railway shop. So I was cleaning and shifting stock and airfix models. So that's what I was doing. And then I moved to a dance shop because I could get my point shoes a little bit cheaper. And then I moved to Orders of Croydon and all the way through it. And I ended up working in Harrods and Selfridges and some of the really big, big department stores. And I learned about customer service. And I learned about actually, disappointment. So something goes wrong, you get really disappointed, and making sure that somebody is happy and they feel included is massive. And when I ended up working as a sales trainer for Intel, one of the things we talked about was you're asking somebody to part with a lot of money. 400 quid for a computer minimum. It's a lot of money. So give them the service. And the thing that it's all about is helping people. And that's a really key thing in my life, is I want to help people. I love seeing other people thrive. Watching somebody that I've helped thrive and become confident on camera, or nail their social media, or nail their online presence and really rock it. I'm so happy watching a report going to Europe, and we know it's going to go through on the first one because all the I's have been dotted and everything's
Yeah.
been checked and the data's correct. Yeah, it's all about the service. Yeah.
That's fantastic. It is, because there's lots of great places we can go to learn these communication skills. There's tons of stuff out there, tons of opportunities, but that combination of keeping the motives and keeping the service that's underpinning everything else we do, I think it's fabulous. And I loved that quote from your website. But going back to our nevers, you didn't sit on your bed and play with a doll and say, one day I'm going to run a podcast. One day I'm going to be, training people and building people's confidence in YouTube. That's not, from what I can gather, not what you dreamt of when you were a little girl, not what you dreamt you were going to do. So how did you end up doing stuff that you were never going to do? I mean, we chatted yesterday and you were saying that you're never going to do social media. You were not, even though you were an actor, you were not going to be on camera from a social media point of view. You certainly weren't going to start a podcast. You absolutely weren't going to launch a business. Yet you have done those things. What changed for you as those things turned and became the things that you now love to put your time into?
So it's really interesting. I've always been one that's been quite brave at jumping in and trying things. And I think that goes back to my secondary school. I have to do a big shout out to Arts Ed and the fact that I was trained to be an actor, and acting, you're throwing yourself into trust exercises, you're doing pas de deux. And yes, I found that really difficult. And you're working with people and that teamwork. But one of the things arts really instilled in you was to never give up. Now, I'm scared of so much, and I do mean absolutely petrified. And every time I launch into something new, I go, oh, I can't do it. I can't do it. No. I'm going to launch my online course and I'm not going to sell any. And I get all these fears. And why would I do that? And am I worthy enough to do it? I think that's a really key one, is the word worthy. Am I worthy enough to do it? Am I considered to be intelligent enough to do it? Intelligence being another one. Actually, I think I'm quite stupid. These are negative words. And what I had to do was learn to reframe them. But I've always loved the Alice moments and the Wiggly Wonky career. And as an actor, you have a dream. So that 8-year-old child on the bed who'd done her first Heinz Baked Beans advert, my dream was the Royal Shakespeare Company. That's where I was going. But my life didn't take me there. And my life took me to my parents at Aliens and Basil Brush and then Shoebox Zoo, and I was a TV actress. And then somewhere along the line, I didn't believe I could act any longer. I was a trained singer, really good singer, but I didn't believe I could sing, so I lost my voice. So I've had to constantly learn that I'm going to never do something, but I'm going to suddenly find I do it. And when I do put my mind to it, I have to do it. And this is my secret. I have to do it quickly. Because if I don't do it quickly, I will talk myself out of it.
Okay. Yes.
I now know that the way my mind works with my nevers is go, never, 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 do it now. And then I can't back out of it because I've done it.
And that whole that moment just before you launch, into that next thing is, like you say, it's such a fearful moment. And you're talking about what Joy would call the ants, those automatic negative thoughts. I can't, I'm not worthy, I'm not able. And all of those things crowd into us. And even the stepping off to the next point, it is not a guarantee of success. So what have you done with that kind of I suppose that even stepping off in bravery, and then really realizing this isn't working the way I thought I would. It isn't working the way I thought it would. It hasn't happened the way I thought it would, the way I hoped it would. How do you deal with those disappointments in that?
So I don't get disappointed. That's a really important thing. I don't get disappointed at all. I give myself permission to fail. I give myself permission for it not to be perfect. I absolutely give myself permission for it to be a pile of PANTS. And then what I do is when it does work, I go, ooh, that's exciting. And so far, I've been really lucky. I found that if I give myself permission, I call them magical mistakes. And there have been a few, go back to my earlier branding. Ooh, that was interesting. Go back to my original company name. oh, what was I thinking? It's still my company name, but what was I thinking? So there have been some massive magical mistakes, but from those magical mistakes, I've put pillars and learnings, and now I share all of that. And the reason I share it is because when you first decide to launch a business or launch a course or whatever you're going to do, you worry so much about the failings and you think, I'm on my own. You're not on your own, everybody, because every single business person has gone through that. And so give yourself permission for it not to be perfect.
Yeah. And it's not expect nothing and everything you get as a bonus, because we can slip into that quite easily, can't we? You know, well, I'm just going to expect this to fail. And if it doesn't fail, I'll be delighted. It's actually trusting, it's giving yourself, like you say, the permission to say, I'm going to do this. And whatever happens, you know, this is the path I've taken. This is the result. And I'm going to take the result and do it better the next time. And I think that's so important. Because everybody else will give us the permission, and the people who support us and the people who love us will say, just go for it, just go and do it. But we have to flip that switch in our own heads, don't we? To say, really, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to allow myself not for it not to be perfect. And let's see what happens.
You really have to, because I think perfection is a moving target, and you're striving, but actually nothing is perfect. And if you go and look at the flower or whatever, the leaf in your front garden, or a blade of grass, I remember, I think it was Brian, I know it's not going to come to me, Brian Patton maybe, you know, I gave you a blade of grass, you said it is not good enough, and yet I gave you, it's a beautiful poem, and it's all about actually what is good enough. It doesn't matter. You know, you're either going to launch and succeed, or you're going to launch and fail. And if you fail, it's not a failure, it's a magical mistake, because actually you've probably got a load of stuff that you've just done that you can then rework, reuse, and repopulate. And so nothing is a failure. It's all a magical learning curve.
Yeah, it's a bit like writing. So my background is in writing, and you can't edit a blank page. So you've got to write the first draft. And I suppose launching a product or a service is a similar thing. You've got to do a first draft, because you can only perfect something that's already done. You can't perfect an idea in your head. It's got to be out there and put into practice and tested and tried, and then say, okay, now I see how it works. I can see how it works better. And now I see how it looks. I can see how I can make it look better and move forward. So, Kirsty, can you tell us a bit more specifically about this, you know, this feeling you had about social media, about, you know, YouTube, being in front of the camera from a non-acting point of view, and podcasting? What was the turnaround for you? Because you were like, never, no, not doing it. It's not me. So what happened? What's the story of how you turned that around for yourself?
So I was never, ever, I didn't like social media. I didn't like being seen. And it's to do with something that happened in my life, that I had a bit of trauma, and I felt very uncomfortable kind of showing myself out there. And also as an actor, and I think this is really important, as an actor, you're playing a part.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd been a presenter, and I've done a lot of presenting, and all of that. I had brought my presenting persona to the ground. So I'd created this persona of me, the presenter, and then I could put on me, the actor. But suddenly I was faced with, here we were in the pandemic, the marketing support that I wanted to offer, nobody kind of knew that I did this. And so I needed to make money. And one of the quick ways for me was to do on-camera coaching. So I was launching a business, doing on-camera coaching, and I was doing really well. And then my clients were going, well, what do you mean by this? And then one of the things you're taught as an actor is not to demonstrate, but to explain. And I suddenly realized that I had actually quite a good skill set from directing things and being an actor and all the training, and you know, lots and lots of training, and obviously being an actor on camera and understanding about camera angles. So I decided that it was actually worth doing that first video, and I hated it. I'll tell you what. The first videos were in my office, and of course they had to be perfect. They couldn't be perfect, but I had to get them right. And I spent ages learning how to connect different cameras onto OBS. I had a backdrop behind me. I was talking about video conferencing fatigue, and I put them out there, and I thought, oh, what am I doing? And this lovely guy, Luke Steele, gave me a call straight away. I went, you are so natural at this. I went, really?
Wow.
Oh, okay. That was a huge thing.
What an encouragement.
Yeah, but I didn't put them on YouTube to begin with. It took me a long time. They're not on YouTube now, because actually the quality was really bad and really poor. But it was a really interesting thing because I didn't launch the YouTube channel for at least another 2 years, I think, maybe a year and a half, because I was using the channel as a repository for where my clients could go and access the videos that they needed. And so it kind of was a bit of a strange one. But yeah, somehow I pulled on my brave pants and somehow I did it. I'm not going to say it was easy. I think the first one took 50 takes.
Wow.
Yeah, much harder going on camera than it is to actually talk about it. And one of the things that I really learned was, as an on-camera presenting, public speaking, communication strategist, I needed to be on camera as much as I was asking my clients to do it, because you lead by example.
Yeah, and like you were saying, you demonstrate rather than explaining. You're demonstrating how it's done and how it can be done. It's, you know, it's doable. It doesn't have to be perfect every single time, and every time you do it, you get better. But you've got to do that, haven't you? As a, you know, as a teacher, trainer, whatever, you know, whatever your kind of mode you're in, you've got to demonstrate it, and not just, you know, it's a bit of a kind of a do as I do as well as do as I say. You know what I mean? So,
that's the same thing with the podcast. So people were coming to me and asking me, how do you know, I had a call this morning, how do I launch my podcast? What style, what format? And I was giving them all the structure and the information. And then it was like, hang on a minute, I kind of probably need to do one, but I wasn't ready. And then LinkedIn were launching their LinkedIn lives, and I applied and I got it. Didn't see I got it, and I knew somebody I knew really wanted to go live, and I thought, oh, I've got to test this. I've actually got to try this. Because how can I coach it if I don't know it? So that was the other thing why I ended up launching the podcast. Was, one, it was on a whim, but two, if I'm coaching it, I need to know it.
Yes, yeah. So do you think that that's what helped you to change your, you know, your mindset about social media and podcasting and all that, in that? I suppose it goes back to the quote from your website, in the sense that you did it in some ways from a service point of view. If I want my service to be the best it can be, then I need to go and do some of these things that I'm going to be asking my clients to do.
Absolutely.
You know, and like be able to say, well, actually, let me show you how this should be done, and or maybe first of all how it shouldn't be done, and then go on to say how it should be done. But for you, sorry, go on.
No, that's it. If I'm selling a service on how to launch a podcast or how to write a blog, I'm talking about how to write a report for you, whatever it is, I need to be able to say, here are live examples. This is how I do it. If I can't, and it's not about demonstrating, it's about giving that advice. If I haven't done it, then I do not have a right to sit there and say, well, do this, because I don't know. And so I guess it's about, you know, the proof is in the pudding. If I can do it, then I'll help you. If I can't do it, then I need to pass you on to somebody else. And that's really also about where service at the heart comes in. Because if I'm not the right person, I'll help you find the right person.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's vital, isn't it? To be able to say, this is not my wheelhouse, not my bag, but I can point you to somebody who can help you with that. And so you know yourself by doing, whether this is something that you can actually teach, or whether it's something that you need to hand on to somebody. I mean, the wonderful thing about the Tech Pixies community, and lots of the communications in general community, is that idea is there's always somebody who knows another side of the task, or another area of the subject that you can send people on to. There's just so many great people around that we can learn from. I mean, when I was doing my CPD, when I did the social media management in Tech Pixies, I went to you and said, I don't know what to do about YouTube. And it was great. You were able to give me an idea of what the numbers meant. I didn't understand what the numbers meant when I had done my kind of 28-day project. But I think it's wonderful to be able to go to somebody, and for them to have as well the confidence to say, this is not something that I can show you, but I'll point you to somebody who can, because somebody else pointed me to you about the YouTube. So I think it's wonderful that the community is like that. And even though there is competition, it's a healthy, friendly, supportive most of the time, maybe not all the time, but I think most, and certainly within the Tech Pixies family, there's fantastic, amazing women who are doing all sorts of different areas of communication and social media. But for you, how did you deal? Because this is something that comes up again and again and again. How did you deal with the imposter syndrome? What was your tools to get yourself out of that rut? Because I think that's one of the big things for
So I
a lot
think
of us.
the first thing I'm going to say is I still have it. And I really, really struggle. So I think, thinking I've got rid of my imposter syndrome is just, no. I've started a new thing because that's what I do. I love trying new things. And I'm now at night school learning. I was going to go, I'm going to try it, Espanol. And last night we were learning the numbers. I'm a beginner. And I really, really, really struggle. So have I got rid of my imposter syndrome? No.
Mm-hmm.
Do I cope with it better? Yes. So I use actually one of my own coaching techniques, because I was bright red last night, having to, I'm not going to say the number in Spanish, but 75 out loud. And it was incredibly uncomfortable for me because I've got a slight speech impediment that you don't necessarily hear, so that my mouth doesn't shape certain sounds and certain words, and it's really difficult. I've got lots of ways of getting around it in English because it's my natural tongue, but I was bright red. I was down in myself. I was hiding, so much so that I broke the lanyard. That struggling. And I'm a public speaking coach. I'm really confident. Not last night. And so what I do is I do my own technique, which is what I call it AIM. And it's, there I was, bright red, sweating, feeling really uncomfortable, going, and I had to go, actually, I'm going to acknowledge this. It's okay that I feel uncomfortable, that I'm hot, that I'm sweating, that I feel like everybody in the room is staring at me, that I feel foolish. It's okay. And I acknowledge it because I don't speak Spanish yet. Yes. But in 6 months' time, I'll be able to say that. It's just I can't say it yet. So the power of yet. And then by acknowledging it, taking the yet, I could take the breath. So I acknowledge, I've identified that it's unusual, and then I've moved on. So I call that AIM, which is acknowledge, identify, and move on. And so I use that in so many different ways. And that's how I manage, because I haven't got rid of it and I never will get rid of it, but I can manage my imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I think that's really important because, we talked about failure, and fear of failure first will come, and then quite possibly failure will come, and imposter syndrome will come, and like you say, sometimes it hangs around for quite a bit. So it's not that we can eliminate them from our lives and eliminate them from our from just being with us, but we can, like you say, deal with them and finding. I think that's wonderful. AIM. So acknowledge, identify, and move on. I think that's wonderful. Like that, those practical tips that you can take and to help you to move forward. And to be honest with you, I find it quite encouraging that. And it probably sounds very mean, but I'm not gloating, but I find it encouraging that even at the stage you are with your business, that you can go to Spanish class and suddenly realize I cannot say those things out loud. I was in my Welsh class this morning having similar problems with double D's and double L's. So I feel your pain. But so how did you go from being a person who didn't want social media, didn't want a podcast, didn't want to do the camera stuff? How did that become now the business that you love?
Baby steps.
Baby steps. I love it.
Baby steps. It doesn't happen overnight. I remember putting out the first social media post. I put one up, said launch the business, and then I left the pages for quite a few months. And then, funny enough, I joined the Tech Pixies course and they introduced me to Canva. And from Canva, I did my first social media posts. Now, what people don't realize is I didn't know at that point that the background in Canva, when you take a frame, was a background. I thought it looked quite nice as mountains, so I used that. And that was actually my first animated social media post of a man walking. I think about it now, and I think about the videos that I create now and all the editing. And what I would say is it's baby steps. And every time I've got to learn a new piece of software, every time I've got to do something new, even, and this is really important, even things I know I can do. So I've reformatted so many computers in my time. Even doing that for my daughter, I panic. I have this real default thing of panic and fear, and then I have to take a deep breath, and I have to acknowledge, identify, and move on. I then have to face my fears and do it anyway, and then I can breathe, and then I do it. So even when I'm learning a new platform, learning new software, I always think my default, because I've got still this little girl who went to school who was undiagnosed with dyslexia and dyspraxia, I have a default of I'm stupid, I can't do it. So I have to use AIM all the time. So it's baby steps. And there's sometimes I won't post something. I mean, for 2 years, I didn't have any personal photos of me, which nobody realizes, because you saw me all the time on social talking through the camera. But I hate still images of me more than anything. I like it when I'm animated, but a still photo of me, ooh. Even when I was getting married, I went, please, can you get one that doesn't have my fake acting smile on it?
Okay, I thought you were going to say, please, can you get one that doesn't have my face on it?
Yeah, I actually said, no, I genuinely said that to the photographer. I did. I went, can you take them from here down? And my husband looks at me and goes, this is ridiculous. But I struggle with this, or face it. I don't struggle. Struggle's not the word. I face it, and I do it anyway every single day. So it's baby step. It's a post here, a post there. I remember writing my first blog going, how can I, as a dyslexic, write a blog? And I put it out there, waiting. Someone came back and said, there's 2 typos. Changed the typos. I now use tools like Grammarly. I'm not going to hide it. I pay for it because my dyslexia is that bad. But, or rather, it's just that interesting, because it can be. But I lean on tools, but it's baby steps. Every single thing I do is one task at a time, and it's accomplished. And I've learned along the way. And actually, that's what I share mostly with my clients.
Yeah. And again, it's the doing, going through the process, walking through it in that way, and then being able to share that experience with those who are following after. What would you say is the favorite thing about what you do? I mean, you've got the training in, presenting on camera. You've got the Wise Why, which is your podcast, and other training that you're doing. What gives you the biggest buzz, or is it just all? Do you just love it all?
So it's all, but what I really, really, really like is when I get people to know what they do and how to say it.
Yeah.
That is just when I watch the business owner who is using jargon or talking fluffy and we and they and our royal we, and or they're so busy creating this post that's not resonating or connecting with their audience. When I switch that around, so this is what my identifying your key messages does. It switches the thought process around, and instead of you pitching at people, telling everybody what you do, it flips it on its head and it shows how you help.
Yes.
How you serve, and how your product or service is absolutely invaluable to them and why they need it. And so you no longer sell. So what this format works in your social media, it works on your website, it works in your videos, it works in your podcast, it works everywhere. And it's really simple. And when I get to watch someone go, oh my goodness. And then I watch their socials and I watch their business thrive. Then I sit back and go, which is why I say, I think I say, know what you do and know how to say it, something along those lines.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So what would you say, we've got probably a lot of tech pixies watching, but people who aren't within the tech pixie community as well. What would you say to somebody who's would love to launch a podcast or would love to launch a YouTube channel and is in that kind of paralyzing fear bit, is there a practical tool to get us to take that next step? Because I think once we get started, it can, we can build a bit of momentum, but sometimes it's that first step. Have you got anything that you could share that would really encourage somebody to just go for it?
Start at the end. So we talk about visualization, and we talk about visions, and we talk about the end result. So when you're looking at your video or your even your blog, what's your conclusion going to be? What's the thing at the end? When you're writing your book, I'm sure you've done the same thing. What's the end? Because if you start at the end, you know where you're working to. It's the same with your YouTube channel. I've learned a lot on YouTube because I've I didn't start at the end. I kind of launched it backwards, but I've now learned start at the end. This includes when you're doing a video for YouTube, start with your thumbnail and your title.
Okay.
Now, your thumbnail on YouTube needs to be emotive and it needs to connect. It needs to look good, but it also needs to be on brand. So think about what you want. Think about the visually impaired. Think about the neurodiverse. Think of me, because think about the text you use. Think about the amount of words you use. Strip it back. Less is more. So start at the end. What's it going to visually look like? Then what are the words going to be? So what's the focus? Now, I'm not saying learn a script. Not. So if you've got the thumbnail title, what's the connecting but contrasting title for your video? Then go and film your video. Don't do it the other way around, because then you're doing a video because you've got to do a video and there's a lot of pressure. If you flip it the other way around and you start at the end, you're going to do a video about this and you're going to cover this.
Yeah, that's great, because I think even having the thumbnail done, because you see some of these wonderful catchy thumbnails on YouTube, and actually to get the thumbnail as you want it and to get the title and almost get to the point where you go, that's what I want to say. That is what, and I suppose it drills down to, this is the nub of what I want to say, and then you build what you're writing then around that, so that it drills down into that one main point.
Yeah, so know what you say, how to say it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. So, and like for somebody who wanted to start podcasting, is there a particular platform that you recommend?
So I just had this whole conversation this morning. Again, start with the end. What do you want it to be? Do you want to spend about £500 per episode paying for somebody to edit it, paying for somebody to do all the bits for you and film it if you're going to do video? And I would really recommend that every single person does a video and audio line. And the reason for it is you've then got the video that you can repurpose, because video tracks better than anything else, and you can strip out the MPEG-3. So you can then put it up onto, and I'm a big one for free things. So Anchor, everybody, don't pay for anything else. Anchor's free. So Anchor, write it down. Anchor leads to Spotify, leads to all the leading platforms, and is 100% free. So I would definitely say repurpose. But again, start with the end and what you want it to be. If you're wanting a high-end one, awesome. Do you want to have production values? So do you want to spend time? Do you have time? Do you have time to spend the time to edit it, to use Audacity, to clean the sound, to all of these different tools? Do you have time? If you don't have time, go the cheap way I did at 250 quid. I had a streaming camera, so that was fine. Buy a microphone, get some StreamYard or some other streaming platform, and hit send, hit go live. That's how I did mine, and I did it on 250 quid. So I would say, what do you want it to be? How authentic do you want it to be? How raw do you want it to be? And what is the format? If it's you talking to camera, go for it. Think about it. Start at the end. If it's you and your guests, what is the structure? Look at the people who are doing what your style and your idea, and see how you can do yours, your way, and disrupt the market. The big thing is to disrupt the market.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So you've gone from never wanting to do social media, never wanting to launch a YouTube, never wanting to launch a business, never wanting to learn a new language, if I remember correctly. And have you become somebody who now never says never? Have you become one of those people?
No, I say, so we've got a phrase that we use in the family, which is never is a very long time.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I'm never going to do that. Well, never's a very long time. It's a really long time, because I don't think it's ingrained in me to always be at the default of I never can. So I'm not ever going to stop saying I never will, but I am going to say I will probably always turn my nevers into evers.
Great. Great. I love it. I love it. I think it's brilliant because you talked earlier on about the you being worthy and not feeling worthy for that. And that's probably another issue that many women, I think, have, particularly if they've spent years in a particular job and they want to launch out in their own business, or they haven't worked for quite a while. And I just think that if you can get to the point where you believe in yourself, because I firmly believe, and this is, I've got this from Tech Pixies, that if there's something that lights you up that you really, really want to do, then that's been given to you to go and do. So you need to go and explore how to do that. But of course, we've got this kind of, like, we're fighting through a jungle of these doubts and thoughts, and we're trying to cut them down, and they're growing up like weeds, but I think if we can push through those doubts, the doubts we have in ourselves, and actually take a step forward. And sometimes it's just that first step, isn't it? It was the same with my podcast. It was just one microphone and one episode, and then it went on from there. And I haven't done any video on my podcast. I keep thinking, I'm saying I'm going to do it, and that has to be my next kind of, oh gosh, jump on. But I think it's wonderful that you've been able to turn those nevers into evers, turn those things you had no intention of doing into things that have become not just a great business practice, but also building on that platform of service that you want to give. And I think you do provide an amazing service. And SEO, that's a whole other conversation we need to have, isn't it? About how important SEO is and how you train in that as well.
So that's a really important thing, because Google will choose its own, or search engines will choose their own SEO, and yet we all get caught up in SEO. And actually, it's more about you teaching the algorithms, the bots, what you do. So that's where your key messages come into play. Your key messages, your short tail and your long tail, need to be aligned to what you actually do. Do you know how many, and I'm going to say this, do you know how many people contact me and tell me they can monetize my YouTube channel, they can revolutionize my podcast, they can do all these different things for me, but it's never going to be connecting with my ideal client. It's always going to be monetized and not who I want. And so the SEO I use is deliberately designed to go out there and meet and connect to the people I want to work with and the people who want to work with me. So I wish I could say to you, stop sending me those cold DMs. Oh, I have.
Oh, you've just said it. No, I think one of the things that you taught me as well, you gave me, and it was a very good smack on the wrist you gave me, and it was a well-needed smack on the wrist, was to get my head around the SEO, to realize the importance, and also, like you said, not to be chasing, but actually to be building it so that it's drawing to you the people who need what you have, and the people who will benefit from what you want to provide. So that really helped me. I mean, I haven't done all of my homework yet, Kirsty, but I am in the process of doing it. But thank you. Is there anything else? Is there a parting encouragement you want to give before we sign off? It's been amazing. I'd chat to you for another hour, but
so I'd say what we've talked about, the podcast for 250 quid. I haven't quite done the YouTube blog yet. Camera confidence, all of those things. You can read my blogs. I deliberately give stuff out for free. You can go to my YouTube channel. There's like 178 videos on there. I'm not worried about having 1,000 followers. Yeah, I'm going to put that one out there as well, because my brain can only cope with so many. So I would say one of the things I'd say is stop trying to chase big numbers, focus on the audience you've got. But also, if you really are stuck and you're just a bit confused over something, or you want a tip like vidIQ in the back of your YouTube channel, go and read my blogs, because there are things in there which are deliberately for free.
Brilliant. So what's the name of your website? Where can we find you?
www.kvdb.co.uk. I made it really hard, right? Kirsty Vandenbonk.
Well, also unforgettable, Kirsty. So much like yourself. So thank you so much for joining us on the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. It's been a total blast, and Joy will be very sorry as she didn't get the chance to interview you, and she will be back next week with our next guest. But it's so lovely to have had your company for this. Is it this morning? I don't even know what time it is. Is it? Yeah, it's the afternoon, isn't it? It's the afternoon. But it's really been lovely to chat. And kvdb.co.uk. Yeah, thanks for making it easy for me to remember. Thank you so much. Take care from the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. I say goodbye, and we'll see you guys next week.